Universities have become prime targets for cybercriminals. Vast networks, valuable research, and tens of thousands of students create a digital ecosystem that's both innovative and vulnerable. Few people understand this better than Steve Rogers, Chief Technology Officer at Coventry University, here to discuss the challenge of defending higher education in an age of ransomware, AI-powered threats, and increasingly sophisticated attacks. How do you secure an institution built on openness without sacrificing the freedom that drives learning and discovery? Hi, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to hear your story. So you are the CTO for Coventry University. You've been there for 21 years, all the way, I think, from systems administrator all the way to CTO. So maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and the security landscape. I'm sure it's changed very much over those 21 years. So tell us how that's changed.
Absolutely. I mean, being in education, we were the traditional sort of on-premise, systems administration, lots of servers, data centers that we house ourselves. And over a decade after that, we sort of moved into virtualization, in bringing the cloud into sort of our environment and making it more hybrid, and then moving more completely to cloud as we move forward. In regards to cybersecurity, it's about how we've evolved our products. Traditionally, it's just been virus definitions, make sure they're all up to date. And now we've had to look at start bringing a whole set of tools into ecosystems. We've brought CrowdStrike in just under the last sort of 6 years or so. And now we're looking at the attack interfaces that are coming at the university every single week. We're looking at 2 million attacks a day during busy periods. We never got anywhere near that when I first started out. With cybersecurity, it wasn't even spoken about really. So we're having to look at those sort of challenges day by day, and tools and partners are helping us with that. That's how it's evolved.
Yeah. So doing more with less is a mantra for education, for every industry, but I'm sure for education. I think there are 45% of UK universities are facing financial deficits. So in light of all of that, how do you justify cybersecurity from an ROI perspective? And how is the CEO and the board, how have their expectations changed, especially in light of AI?
Well, I think sometimes the heavy lifting's done for us, because we see a lot of things in the press at the moment where universities are being taken offline. They're having systems attacked. They're being down for very busy periods, like we call it clearing, where we enroll all of our students. The way that we justify it is to kind of take a risk approach. Typical tools, we can't just buy lots of tools to tick every single box, fill every gap. We look at what's going to add the most value where there's the higher threat daily, and what we're dealing with regards to risk to corporate platforms, data, and just our own infrastructure. How are we protecting our research, our IP? And I think one of the critical areas for us is student records. We have to deal with a lot of passports, visas, and we justify it based on what endpoints are you protecting. We think that, protecting the shop window, the endpoint, the way into the organization is critical. That's where we started. That was quite easy to justify, and our core infrastructure. So we look at CrowdStrike as an ecosystem for cybersecurity protection. And there's a lot of modules in there that add different benefits to different areas. We can't buy them all. Being education, the financial challenges and sustainability of cyber has to be the right size for our institution. So we pick and choose. It's a nice little jigsaw puzzle going on. We're putting a lot in the CrowdStrike platform, and we're on about 6 modules at the moment.
Which modules do you have?
So like I said, we started with the managed services, the endpoint protection, the Overwatch service, so managing all our environment. We've got the identity protection that we've onboarded about 12 months ago. That was something we chose to manage ourselves, but moved to the managed service just because we were seeing the benefits. We moved away from our existing SIEM provider into the CrowdStrike next-gen SIEM, just so we were putting things closer to the product and those that were helping us, so they could respond quicker. We've also got the exposure management, the firewall management, and the mobile. So I come at it, are we putting all our eggs in one basket? Absolutely, because personally I think it's the best product. And I'm not saying that just to sell CrowdStrike. The more I've learnt along the way with what they provide and how they help us, and some of the things I've seen them detect, it's invaluable.
So you're a managed service MDR customer of CrowdStrike. Can you talk a little bit about your MDR and what is the role that it plays in terms of your staffing? Do you look at it as an augmentation of your existing staff?
Absolutely. We see it as an extension to our cyber team or our infrastructure planning team, what it's known as. So we would never have the same level of intelligence to cyber threats and risks that are facing every organization. And we see CrowdStrike, we know we've got named people applied to our account. We see the same people sort of talk to us daily. Some of the threats that they detect we would never have seen. And there's some very high risk ones, sort of periods of holiday. We saw some domain replication attempts, ones that would take down an entire organization if you weren't careful. So building our own teams, we kind of keep that for internal knowledge. So if there's an issue that CrowdStrike want us to investigate and it's something unique to our environment, we keep a small team to do that. But we largely just leverage the CrowdStrike management 24/7, 365, because they've got the knowledge and they've got the knowledge immediately. I don't think any 0 day we've had as a group has been any more than sort of 4 minutes, which I know they put slightly longer on the slides, but for us, that's just fantastic.
It's amazing. So the theme of this segment is called 27 seconds for a reason. It is the fastest breakout time that CrowdStrike observed last year. So in the spirit of that, I think you said something like 2 million attacks a day
Yeah.
that you're facing. How have you seen the adversaries target your university or change their behavior over the years, especially in light of AI?
Well, I think the behavior is AI is becoming weaponized. We're seeing that in the CrowdStrike events that come through. We're starting to see that more and more where there wasn't a human in the loop or on the loop as part of the attack. We're seeing language with regards to how they attack our staff through email. Before you could kind of pick out if a threat was coming through just based on how they were sort of presenting language in an email. Now that's becoming all constructed through AI. So that's becoming a lot more difficult for us to detect. And we have to use a lot of the tools from partners, not just CrowdStrike. There is 5 or 6 sort of AI technologies that we prevent against, and one of them is email, firewall levels, what people are doing accessing services, what prompts you're inputting in. All of those things we've had to change in as little as 12 months.
Wow. So speaking of AI,
Mm.
you support over 800 AI platforms. So what concerns you more? Adversaries using AI better, faster, or ensuring that Coventry can enable safe and secure AI usage for your students at the pace they need?
So we obviously can't support 800. That's what our stats show. There's 812 in use. So what we have to do is just look at the ones that we can put the guardrails round. So we sign a lot of GDPR agreements with the likes of the Googles, the Microsofts, maybe 1 or 2 others with regards to development. So they're not training public models. And so that for us is how we sort of train our users on the governance and ethics of how you're putting data into these platforms. And if you're not sure, use these 2 only. But being an environment which invites strangers onto your network, 20,000 strangers once a year, they'll be using numerous AI products, the chat GPTs, the Claudes. I mean, I can probably only name 20 myself, never mind 800. But everybody's got access to them. How do you govern something or apply a policy to something that everybody is already using already? And they bring that into your environment. And that's our worry, which is why we're looking at the next stages of, well, how do you protect that?
So you've reduced your internal team from 9 roles down to 1 threat hunter. What does the modern SOC look like for Coventry today? And, in your crystal ball, what does it look like in, 2 or 3 years from now? I know that's a long time away with AI, but what do you predict?
I think we will. We've seen some sessions today where it's moving more into the agentic use of AI tools to sort of make your own rules, discovery engines, how you can automate without actually people being involved. And when it goes over a certain threshold, we would bring somebody in, a human in, to say there's a critical event. So we have chosen to go from sort of 9 people down to 1 because we put so much trust in CrowdStrike that we feel cybersecurity is a top hat that can be done by others as well. So we have a second line technical team that still has access to the CrowdStrikes, the dashboards. So I think as that evolves, we will start to develop those sort of agentic models to protect our environment, use SOARs a lot more with regards to automation. Hopefully we can get to a stage where this is actually AI works in our favor, that we're actually resolving a lot of these cyber incidents automatically and not waiting for somebody to actually review and check, whether that's yourselves or somebody in our teams. If I can get to a world when it's fully automated, I'm not going to say it's 3 years away, but it could be, depending on how much intelligence we get into the CrowdStrike products and other tools that we use as an institution.
So you mentioned identity protection, and adding that to your security stack. How do you think about it in terms of securing both human and, with AI now, non-human identities?
So we started with obviously the human interaction. We've put that in front of a lot of identity platforms, so we have multiple, which was an eye opener for us, just to the things we couldn't see, like we said. AI is all around the service account element of it. How do we protect it? We can't put the MFA on things, the multi-factor challenges. It's how are we protecting those service accounts when they're interacting between nodes? And again, it's building something that's automatic. We're working with CrowdStrike at the moment to develop rules where we can detect when there's an interaction between two AI sources. We do a lot of offline models as well, which the commoditized sort of detection in like the Geminis and the Claudes and the Copilots, they're quite easy to detect when there's an interaction. The ones where they're offline models are not so easy. So I'll be working with CrowdStrike moving forward to say, how do we detect this everywhere? AI moving to the servers that we host ourselves. The endpoints where we don't provide these sort of data protected platforms, what's going missing? Can we record every prompt, for example? And I think we have to. I think sometimes with these AI tools, we forget we've got regulations to follow with regards to data protection. So I'll be leveraging the automation a lot more in these products to detect the identity piece. And that's managed as well. So just to expand on it a little bit, it's about working with CrowdStrike to make sure that the rules are in place to detect when there's an anomaly on it.
I believe Coventry was our first UK university customer, so thank you very much. And now, with your advocacy and partnership, you've actually helped us expand out across multiple education institutions in the UK. What does a true security partnership look like to you, and how do you think about your partnership with CrowdStrike?
Well, starting what we said earlier about the extension to our workforce, but it's also education. I always found it was quite secretive. Where if you looked at a bank, if there's a cybersecurity issue, they'll all share that knowledge together. Where we never did. It was always like we had something to protect. So I was kind of championing the fact that we should all be working as a community, not only to help each other, but also bring CrowdStrike into these events to actually tell us the threats that we see to our sector. Are we unique? Are we getting the same rules applied to us from the likes of bank, the financial institutions, or other sectors that might be relevant? And they came on board. They started to get involved with our university sessions. We had a working group set up, and then they would show us that this is a specific education attack. ATP attacks against universities nationwide, what they were doing to protect, those up the north, through the middle, through the south, and how the patterns were changing. So I think with that working group, they started to see the value. I'm not going to say I sold everybody the CrowdStrike product, but I think they could see, because we went first, we were actually using our data to show that it's a real threat and it's happening right now. So I always champion the CrowdStrike product, and I have been since day one. It was a very hard sell for me, I'm not going to lie, because you were suddenly going from nothing to a very expensive premium service. So that was an initial challenge. I think it took me about 6 to 7 months for the business case. And I don't think that's too dissimilar for what other people went through. It's only because of the universities getting taken offline. There was a big incident a few years ago in Manchester where they were offline for nearly 6 months, and that was, reported to us what happened. But we didn't know everything with regards to that. So more and more people coming online with CrowdStrike actually adds benefit to Coventry, because the more they find out about the educational sector and how they're protecting them, it's only going to give advantage to us going forwards.
For those organizations that might be building a business case right now for CrowdStrike, whether they're in education or any industry, what would be some recommendations for them? How did you build the business case?
You can't base it on something that's already there's no point in getting investment into something when the horse has bolted. Don't wait for cyber to happen, cyber attack to happen against your institution. Look at the things that you're not very good at today. And if you're not very good in the cyberspace or can keep your knowledge up to date to protect your institution, look at what is the impact of risk of losing your critical business systems, critical endpoints, our own staff being affected by ransomware attacks, all the cyber threats we all hear about every day. It's how do you put a value on that? I think I was listening earlier to one of the presentations at the CrowdStrike event, and it was like the average cyber breach is 2 million. We've got some guarantees with CrowdStrike where there's a million breach warranty on it on every one. So there's things that we have to look at wider than just, is it happening right now? And that's going to be the hardest challenge, because it is an expensive product. But I would say it outweighs the fact if you did have your business being offline. And that's what you have to work out. Play to your strengths, look at them as a partner. If you were to take on a team of like half a dozen people to do cyber, is it going to be any more valuable than what CrowdStrike can do? Because I would say no. And we've just got to understand that when you're building that business case, the return on investment isn't what's going to happen tomorrow, it's what's happening right now. Because as soon as we turn that product on, it lit everything up. And it's very scary if you haven't got anything like that in place, because you cannot see it.
So I heard that you have a charitable hobby. Why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a nerdy one, but I repair old 70s and 80s sort of Star Wars toys from the movies, the original movies. And what I do is I give them to sort of local comic book shops and things that I know, and I ask them to make a donation to various charities. So I pick one every year. It's different. I did children with arthritis last year. This year I'm going for Medi-Cinema. So yeah, I just like to give back. It's a bit of a hobby, kind of repairing models. I like to think I'm restoring a piece of time, but I like the Star Wars movies. But yeah, generally it's I've always got junk lying around, and my partner always gets a bit frustrated. Why have you got all them bits on the side? Why are you repairing this again? And yeah, it does. This time of year, when the sun's out and you're in the garden repairing them, and I earn probably a few £100 a year just for various children's charities. So I like to do that
Amazing.
and give back.
That's amazing. Favorite Star Wars movie in the series?
Or I like Return of the Jedi. I know everyone always goes Empire Strikes Back, but the first half an hour is my favourite of Return of the Jedi. So,
Okay.
yeah,
And favorite Star Wars character of all time?
it's got to be Luke Skywalker. It's
Okay.
got to be. Yeah.
I'm a Yoda fan.
Yoda.
So Return of the Jedi is also one of my favorites. So yeah. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your story, and thank you for being an amazing CrowdStrike customer.
Thanks for inviting me today. Thank you very much.